Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to this Colombia World Leaders Forum event. We are joined today by President Borut Pahor of Slovenia, who is accompanied by a distinguished delegation, including, among others, the permanent representative of Slovenia to the United Nations and the head of the cabinet of the President of Slovenia. We look forward to hearing President Pahor's remarks on the future of Europe. Begun in 2003, on the initiative of Colombia President Lee Bollinger, the World Leaders Forum has become an invaluable experience and rare opportunity for our students, faculty, and staff to engage directly with the men and the women who are addressing the major challenges of the 21st century. By making it possible for the Colombia community to enter into a structured dialogue with foreign heads of state, the World Leaders Forum has become a leading example of the open debate and due consideration of opposing viewpoints that really defines our academic community. We take as an article of faith that through a free exchange of ideas, solutions will be found to the biggest problems facing the globe today. Along with the network of Columbia Global Centers and the Committee on Global Thought, the World Leaders Forum plays an essential role in making Columbia a truly global university. Indeed, it's difficult to imagine that such an event could be held in any other city or in any other university. Permit me a few words about the Harriman Institute, our vibrant center for Russian, Eurasian, and East European studies. The Institute brings together historians, social scientists, and literature and art scholars who study the many diverse countries of the region, as well as politicians, journalists, artists, writers, and other luminaries who participate in our various conferences and events. We've been very fortunate to collaborate with the World Leaders Forum for many years, featuring speakers such as Vladimir Putin of Russia, President Mikhail Saakashvili of Georgia, and Turkmenistan's President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, among others. And this week, we've already heard from Estonian President Thomas Ilves, and on Friday, we look forward to hosting Albania's Prime Minister Edi Rama. This will be our third visit of a Slovenian leader, and we've also welcomed the famous Slovene philosopher Slavoj Žižek, who spoke on several occasions in this very building. Slovenia gained its independence from Yugoslavia in 1991 and largely avoided the worst violence that plagued the remnants of the Yugoslav Federation. For nearly 20 years after its independence, Slovenia enjoyed stability and prosperity, serving as a model of a robust democracy, a strong welfare state, and a growing economy. In 2004, Slovenia joined both NATO and the European Union, and in 2007 it became the first post-communist country to adopt the euro as its national currency. And Borut Pahor played a central role in each of these decisions. Like many other countries in Europe, Slovenia has been hard hit by the global financial crisis. After returning to positive economic growth in 2010, Slovenia has struggled to restore stability to the financial sector and confidence to its consumers. The last 2 years have been especially difficult, and Slovenia has managed to avoid the fate of Greece, but the macroeconomic situation remains fragile. How Slovenia and its fellow Eurozone countries resolve the current economic crisis is an important issue not only for the region, but for the global economy as well. A Europe that continues on its current path could further dampen hopes for a rebound in global economic growth, and we look forward to hearing President Pahor's remarks on this difficult issue. His Excellency has been involved in politics since he chaired the high school student division of the Alliance of Socialist Youth of Slovenia at age 15. He also majored in political science. So as a political scientist, I want to say that this degree can be quite valuable. He has held a stunning array of offices. Beginning in 1992, he was a deputy in the Slovene National Assembly, and eventually rose to become chairman of the Assembly in 2000. From 2004 to 2008, he was a member of the European Parliament. He then returned to Slovenia to become the Prime Minister of a coalition government, a post which he held for 4 years. And in 2012, he ran for the presidency of Slovenia and won by an overwhelming margin, receiving 67% of the vote. In doing so, he became the youngest president of Slovenia and the only person to have headed the parliament, the government, and the presidency in Slovenian history. Throughout his remarkable tenure in Ljubljana and Brussels, his voice has been recognized and is an important force for moderation, mutual respect, and the integration of Slovenia into the global community. President Pahor has said that he would like to keep his remarks short so that he could take more questions from the audience, thinking that the dialogue between the audience and him will be the most lively part of the discussion. So we look forward both to President Pahor's remarks and to a lively and vigorous question and answer section. So please join me in welcoming President Pahor. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It is much more than just a privilege. It is a pleasure to address here at this university the future of Europe. As Professor said, my wish is to debate this issue with you. I will make a short, brief, I hope not boring introductory remarks on this, and then I would like to invite you to make questions, comments, statements, whatever you want, and I think this would be much more interesting than just going through my speech writing. Now, let me start by saying I have a very firm vision of the future of Europe. It is a vision of the United States of Europe. Now, not that this is a very new idea. It's there for a couple of years, but I think I'm the only leader, being Prime Minister or President, among 28 countries of the European Union that would publicly say that he or she is in favor of so clear idea of the future of Europe, United States of Europe. Now, that would mean one parliament, one government, that would mean one central bank, one currency, one fiscal policy. Okay? But it's not, and it should not be, a melting pot, as maybe United States of America is. Should not be. Would be a complete disaster if we would push for United States of Europe to be, half a billion population, large replica of the United States of America. No. We have to respect traditions, diversions, national culture, whatever you want. We have to keep it. Now, for those who are very much in favor, as I am, of the United States of Europe, it is of crucial importance to find out a right balance between common institutions like Parliament, government, central bank, and other institutions of federal state, with the absolute need for some sort of sovereign, states on the other side, sovereign relatively, to maintain the privilege of being different as possible, as much as possible. Now, I know it's difficult, but this is the crucial point. How to make Europe successful, efficient, but not to go too much into the sovereign rights of 28 nations, because I think could happen once again that at referenda people would vote against the new constitution when it comes, if would be too much Brussels in the constitution. Now, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that once we've already tried to come to the constitution European Constitution. At the time, I used to be a Speaker of the House, as Professor said. My fellow colleagues, 3 of them, have joined at that time the so-called Convention of the on the Future of Europe. And I think the chairman, Ambassador, the chairman of the convention has been the former French President. Please help me, somebody. Jesus, D'Estaing. Sorry. So, at the end of the convention, sponsored by Council and European Parliament, D'Estaing came with an idea that the whole document would be constitution. Okay. And then countries have the privilege to decide to go for the referenda or to decide on this in the House. Slovenia has voted on this in the House, voted in favor of. But as you know, France, from different reasons, Netherlands, for different reasons, voted against. And the very first attempt to go for European Constitution failed. I've been very lucky to be later on elected to the European Parliament. I've taken my seat in Constitutional Commission. I've participated very strongly to once again come to a decision for a new convention. But as a politician, I should come to the conclusion that at that time that has not been absolutely possible. In meantime, when I became a Prime Minister, the crisis from Wall Street just came to Europe. And I do remember a very first meeting of European Council. European Council, as you know, is a council where all prime ministers or head of states are represented. It is now probably the most influential European body, much more than Commission and House. I know this is a very sensitive remark, but it's my own, it's my personal remark, being for 3 years a member of Council and 4 years member of European Parliament. Okay, now, the crisis showed, and this is very important for the debate, the crisis showed that Lisbon Treaty, as you know, is a legal framework for European Union at the moment, which basically has been a compromise between a constitution we want and the reality we witnessed at the time. The crisis has shown that Europe could not survive efficiently the time of crisis and time after with Lisbon Treaty. I mean, at least in my opinion. At least in my opinion. It is crystal clear that we have to make a step ahead. Now, I think that after European elections in May 2014, we will get a new Commission. And I think that at the end of the next year, at least out of my experiences, there will be a consensus among institutions back in Europe and among political parties within the House in Brussels to go once again for a convention on the future of Europe with a very precise task. Once again, to come to the new reading of the Constitution. In my view, in case that the majority of MAPs in Brussels would be pro-European, I think at the end of the day, we could witness for the very first time some sort of United States of Europe. At least I will do whatever it takes to achieve this. Maybe and probably compromises will be there, but I think if any time, this time, it is the right time to decide this way. And then it's fair to go and ask people about their opinion. Also in Slovenia, not just to debate this in House, but to go for a referenda and to vote. To deliver some more sovereign rights from Ljubljana to Brussels, from Paris to Brussels, from Den Haag to Brussels, or not. Now, let me finish by saying, not just because of crisis, but because of a very, very deep need of Europe to be a global player in the 21st century, to preserve peace and stability in Europe, to maintain welfare in Europe. The basic condition is to deepen political, economic, social and other dimensions of its own union. Now, could be otherwise. Could be otherwise. Oh yeah. I could not say that this will happen. Nobody can say it. And I know that there are forces, and this is democracy, that are absolutely against the idea of constitution, that they are absolutely against even of a status quo of Lisbon Treaty. They won't go out. They don't want to see Europe to be more Brussels and so on. They blame Brussels for all mistakes dealing with the crisis and so on. But I think in case we would like to see a safe future for our children in Europe, as you know, our parents enjoyed peace and stability after the Second World War. We have to do this brave move to decide upon a much more unified European Union with, as I said, with tolerance to cultural and other differences among nations and countries. Now, the very last sentence. It is, at the end of the day, the probability, and this is not my wish, but it is a probability that in case we would have a constitution which would be some sort of constitution of the United States of Europe, that some countries would vote it against. Could be. Not that I would like to see, but could be. And even much more than that, could be that because of their economic performance could not match with the criteria to be the member of United States of Europe. That is why I will do whatever it takes in my country to solve as quickly as possible the crisis, to turn back the economy to growth, to stabilize our economy within Eurozone, which is still a little bit fragile. I mean the Eurozone and our own economy. That is why I think it's extremely important for small, tiny Slovenia to be an open society, to be a competitive society, at the same time a country with strong social welfare, but prepared for the moment in the history will occur definitely that at the moment my people will go and vote on the new constitution, they will, the majority of them, vote in favor of, not against, because of the fear, but will vote in favor of because of hope, as we voted in favor back in 2004, because, you know, the idea of independent Slovenia has been so much linked with an European idea. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me stop here. I've spoken very frankly and openly to you, and would be a huge privilege to me if you would now make questions or remarks or comments as frank as I used to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You've given us an awful lot to think about. If I could ask anybody who would like to make a question, remark, to please come up to the microphone, introduce yourself briefly, and if you could keep your comments short and to the point, that would be much appreciated so that we could ensure as broad a participation as possible. And we'll take turns starting from this microphone first.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much for coming and speaking today at Columbia. My name is Andrew. I'm a freshman here. My question, well, listening to you talk, I was really considering how in the United States we face some of the same questions, starting back in like 1787 with our Constitutional Convention and discussing, you know, what is the role of like the national government versus the state government. And I think that back, like throughout most of our history, the national government has taken more of a prominent role, and people back in 1787 did not imagine that we would have the kind of the power coming from Washington, D.C. that we do now. And so I'm just wondering what you think about that progression, how right now it's easy to say, oh, we're going to preserve the rights of the sovereign nations in relation to what's happening in Brussels. But obviously once you give some authority to Brussels, then there becomes that like constant conflict as we've experienced in our own history.
Okay.
Listen, let us be practical. There are advantages and disadvantages of federal state. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But let me tell you out of experience one thing. You cannot run the Eurozone with one European Central Bank and 17 fiscal policies. You just cannot. Now, that is why we are now introducing banking union and fiscal union, but this is at the edge of the Lisbon Treaty. If we would like to go on to be efficient for, you know, euro currency, we have to have normal institutions, as in your case. If not, it is another decision, but that would be a decision to step back. Once again, back to the history. I just don't want to see that, because Europe, with 28 nations out of European Union for you know, Slovenia. Listen, it is for me quite impossible to imagine that we would be capable to compete in 21st century in global economy without being a member of Eurozone, without being a member of European Union. But it is difficult, to make necessary steps if the zone, if the Eurozone is not as, your currency zone. You have Fed and you have federal institutions, and they are responsible for the value and the status of the money. We have some problems back in Brussels and Frankfurt. So, as you said, some advantages and disadvantages, but if I have to choose, I would go for the federal.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you for coming. My name is Simon, and I'm a graduate visiting student from Copenhagen, Denmark. And I have this question for you. When do you think that Europe is ready for the United States of Europe? When I say ready, I mean the general perception of the public. I'm from Scandinavia myself, and no offense, we're not ready.
Absolutely. Simon, it's up to you, and probably you will go there and vote, and you will decide on this. There is a question if this decision will be at the referendum at all. I said I will do my best that this will be a possibility. Let me tell you, Simon, in case there will be not enough political will to achieve this draft constitution, then I think the status quo, the Lisbon Treaty, will just not be enough for our family to go on. I don't want to think about consequences. I'm not saying in a couple of years. I'm talking about a couple of decades. I have a son of 15. I enjoyed a peaceful and, my parents enjoy a peaceful time after Second World War. I would like him to have his family in a peaceful world. And I think the condition for this is some sort of deep integration. But at the end of the day, I think it's fair for Europeans to go and to vote on it, not just to ask politicians. No. We have to take this risk, if you want, to ask people not to decide on behalf of them. And you will have this vote, and you will decide upon your own destiny in the future. Okay?
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dana. I'm a master's student at the School of International and Public Affairs. Bearing in mind the contributing role that economic inequality between states played in the breakup of Yugoslavia, and the fact that it's unlikely that smaller, younger nations will ever have the same economic might as Germany, for example, how would you envision a United States of Europe avoiding a similar fate to that of Yugoslavia?
Well, very good question. And out of our own experience with former Yugoslavia, I am in favor of the United States of Europe. If I would not have this dramatic experience with the dissolution of former Yugoslavia, I probably would not be so keen about this vision. Why? Because I think in case you have a firm framework of democracy, respect of human rights, rule of law, the possibility to decide to stay in or to, vote to go out, I think in a global world of 21st century, it's much more, it's the best way for small countries to be within such a union, because there is a global security, it is a common approach to instruments, how to be much more competitive, So, in my experience, I cannot just imagine that, because of the lack of the vision of European Union, as we have the experience in 80s with former Yugoslavia, the lack of vision for Yugoslavia as a democratic state, federal state, as a European, pro-European, and so on, a lack of. That would happen with European Union, I think, the same, in a way. This is a very strong, opinion on it. But I think Europe will avoid this. I hope very much. So, I know that somebody is asking why smaller country would be in favor of such a union with strong Germany and France and Italy, but it's still better to be with them in the family than to be outside by yourself and competing in a global economy. Be with technology, with human, most advanced approaches, and so. This is my very personal response to your excellent question. As you know, Slovenia, with Croatia, has launched a so-called border process initiative. So to keep good relations, to keep a political dialogue among countries in Western Balkans, Bosnia, Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia. We would like to keep with them this optimism on the common European future. Now, this is maybe the answer to your question. Let me say so. Why do you think Bosnia, Serbia, Kosovo, Macedonia are so much in favor to be in European Union, having this, dramatic experience with the war down there after the fall down of former Yugoslavia, just because it's better to be within Union than outside? So their aspiration to be in the Union is the answer to your question. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hello, President Pahor. Thank you for coming. My name is George. I'm currently a freshman at Columbia College. And I just wanted to say that I totally agree with you in terms of the incompatibility of a monetary union without a political union. But how would you respond to the opposing argument that countries instead leave the monetary union or make an arrangement similar to the UK in which they have their own currency and their own central bank?
Well, once again, I do know what I wish. I don't know what will happen. What I wish is that the London would stay within the Union, that the Brits will vote in favor of staying within Union. Even more, that once United Kingdom will be part of Eurozone, but could be a completely different story if the people of this great nation will vote against at the next referendum. So it's going to be a very, very difficult debate there, how to proceed. I've met several British prime ministers from Labour Party, from Conservative Party, all excellent gentlemen. I think everybody is in favor of European Union, but on the other side, they know that London City, at the moment, is not prepared to even debate, the possibility to enter the monetary union. So it's going to be very difficult, even more difficult for them to decide how to proceed with this European idea than maybe in my country, for my people. As I said, I don't know how they will decide. I do know what I wish. It's going to be a very, very difficult decision. Let me say, George, to you that it's going to be a difficult moment of time for Europe in the next couple of years. Now, we can just postpone the decision. But let me say once again, status quo is already getting back, So, but I'm satisfied that people will decide upon their destiny. What is needed is the leaders to step in front of them and speak in favor of the union. That I think it's important. That is, in a way, the reason why I'm here, that you would see that there are politicians back in Europe that would speak very frankly in favor of the United States of Europe. And it is not that, George, I would have a very firm answer to every question how this United States should look like. But there is at least a vision. We have to debate. Now, let us wait and see if the United Kingdom will be a part of this debate or not. I would like to see Britain very much to be within the family. It is a very, very important country.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming to speak with us today. My name is Mia Dillon. I'm a senior at Columbia College. I spent a year in London taking a nationalism course, and there we debated whether the European Union led to a decline or an increase in nationalist sentiments, and if we were to move towards a United States of Europe, do you foresee being European replacing being Slovenian or being German or being British?
Mia, what is your experience out of being there for a year? What do you think it is a general atmosphere among Brits on European perspective?
I think that there definitely is some negative sentiments towards being European. The Brits are very fiercely proud of who they are and their history. And I think they'll be able to balance it if they do join the European Union. What are your thoughts?
Listen, I can imagine how difficult it is for official London to decide on this extremely sensitive issue, because I do know how difficult it is for my country. But it's even more difficult for London than for Ljubljana. Why? Because being a member of the United States of Europe would mean for London even less direct involvement in world's affairs. Would be, completely different approach to economy, to global policy, to international politics. Out of sentiments of, important history, would be very difficult for people to imagine that some other guys from Europe would represent London at the Security Council, for example. let us think about it, not in a couple of years, but in a couple of decades, within the framework of reform of United Nations and Security Council. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to answer this question. I think at the end of the day, this is not just my wish, but I would take a risk to call. I think the majority will vote in favor of. I think the risk of staying out is absolutely too difficult to take.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, President Pahor. Thank you very much for coming today. My name is Sasha, and I'm a freshman at Columbia College. And I was wondering how you would imagine the United States of Europe addressing foreign policy, whether as the United States or as separate countries.
So from tougher to tougher questions.
We warned you before.
Well, listen, let us say some encouraging words about at least attempts of European Union to be in global international politics with one voice. We have High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy, Lady Ashton. Listen, would be quite impossible to imagine such an institution 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's there, the institution and the person. So the American foreign minister could make a phone call to European Union, and he has a number of the person who is responsible for European perspective of global policy. Now, it is quite clear that this is just a beginning of common foreign policy. But at least it is a beginning. So I think this shows the general common sense, at least among politicians back in Europe, that there is a strong need for reform of European Union and to get step by step maybe to union, as I've spoken about, European United Nation, United States of Europe. So basically, as I said, one parliament which would then elect a government. This is not the case at the moment. You know that the case of the moment is that basically Council would propose to Parliament a gentleman or lady for a Commission President. The Parliament would vote then on confidence, and then every country would then get a seat within the Commission with one commissioner. This is close, but not enough for an efficient body which would be executive political body of European Union. On the other side, you have Council. The Council is composed from prime ministers and head of states in case of France or Latvia or Cyprus, I think. And this Council, at least in my view, during the crisis, has gained much more power than before. So, because it has been, the position to take the decisions, and I do remember we have had meetings from 8 p.m. until 5, 6 a.m. in the morning about different perspectives of Greece crisis, Portugal, Spain, and others. So I cannot be more specific about this, institutional dimensions of the future Constitution of the United States of Europe, but there is at least a picture of it. So, Sasha, this is my response to your very good question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha.
President Pahor, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I'm a PhD student at Columbia, but I am German. And the question is probably going to get even tougher now. So we all heard Herman van Rompuy, the president of the European Council, talk 2 days ago. And the same issue also about the United States of Europe came up. And he strongly said that it will never be United States of Europe because there's just too many different countries, too many different national ideas, too many cultures. And he strongly defended that. So obviously you have a different perspective. And well, we all know that this has been the hot topic in discussion about the European Union, like the deepness of the integration ever since its inception. So I would like to ask you, what would be some of your personal sort of opinions and concrete ideas you would have as to in which areas we need deeper integration, which areas should be rather left to national sovereignty, and how would you go about that?
Okay. Now, with all due respect to Council President Herman van Rompuy is my very good friend, not just a colleague, and really a very, very good, an honest person, a brave politician. I disagree with him. But you have to understand that as a Council President would not now loudly speak about United States of Europe. If Herman van Rompuy would say this, would be some sort of huge debate. But on the other side, the Commission President, probably outgoing Commission President Barroso, at one of the last speeches in Strasbourg, in European Parliament, mentioned this strong need, as he said. So, I think, let me answer this way. Just a couple of years before the fall of Berlin Wall, would you meet a lot of people that would say that Soviet Union will disappear? No. But it happened. It will happen. It will happen.
Thank you very much. On that note, I think we have to wrap up. I want to thank the students for their provocative questions. I'm not surprised. I'm always impressed by the level of discussion at these events. And I also want to thank the President for the frankness of his speech and the clarity of his vision, which makes it very easy to ask good and important and substantive questions. Unfortunately, President Pahor has to battle New York City traffic to get over to the United Nations, or I'm sure he would be glad to continue this discussion. But we are very glad that he made time from his very busy schedule to come, and I thank you all for coming, and please join me in giving a big round of applause and appreciation of President Pahor of the Republic of Slovenia.